The United Taxi Association Front, an industry organization that's not subsidized by government, has called a media briefing to discuss taxi fare increases and plans for a shutdown. Let's take it there live.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tami Butelezi, the Secretary of United Taxi Association Front, which is affiliated to National Taxi Alliance. I would like to welcome SABC into UTAF's media briefing, whereby we'll be addressing 3 issues. 1, fuel hikes. 2, fare increments. 3, possible national shutdown. As we all know that once the fuel goes up, everything increases, which has made our spares to be very expensive. Oil and also to maintain our vehicles is difficult now. Our members can't afford to pay installments anymore. But then I will hand over to Mr. Siponkwanyana, who is our spokesperson, to read our media statement, and the panel that we have is Mrs. Grif, who is an executive member, Mr. Zweli Mkhunu, who is an executive member, and Mr. Philemon Nzima, who is also our executive member. I will then ask Mr. Siponkwanyana to read our statement, and then after we'll take questions. Thank you.
Thank you, SG. Thank you, SG. The person that just spoke, I like introducing him first, is Mr. Tami Butelezi, our Secretary General. Thank you. And the media statement reads as follows. It reads as follows. This is a media statement release of the United Taxi Association's Front. It is our pleasure to host and share with and through you what we have, meaning you as media, meaning with South Africans, of course, and the world at large. The taxi industry has for decades carried the South African commuter by way of charging a small amount in terms of fares in international standards. This we have persisted to do even under the most trying circumstances. The business environment, i.e. competing with highly subsidized transport modes. And if you fast forward to 2022, the first and second quarter, which is where the trouble has started to escalate out of control. We as the taxi industry have, as a matter of principle, only increased taxi fares as the last resort. We're presently counting from about 2 years ago, reeling from the after effects of the deadly COVID-19 pandemic, coupled with its crippling results, stomached and absorbed all inflationary upward movements or push on our costing and running costs. All components including, but not limited to spares, vehicles, tires, fuel, etc., have been delivering a death blow, but we have just kept our heads above the water. We are now left with no option but to increase fares for our members to be able to survive in this harsh business environment. Given the limitless escalation of the fuel price recently and the upward effect this has on all other costing components in the equation, refer to what the SG said when in his opening statement, we found ourselves forced to increase fares by at least 10 rand per fare or per traveling fare. However, we're doing our very best to try and mitigate even that. Now, national shutdown is this is the subheading that we'd like the world and South Africans not to misconstrue, but to get where we just want to make clear where we come from. As an option, we have not left out the possibility of a national shutdown as the taxi industry. However, I want to gladly indicate that our mother body, the National Taxi Alliance, is currently engaging government on the various available options as to how we can avoid this. And I'm sure that shutdowns have been bandied around in the recent past, but of course, as an industry and as UTAF in particular, we continue to pin our hopes on the fact that the discussions with the National Taxi Alliance, between themselves and government, which is our mother body, the NTA, will bear fruit. Now, however, if our government continues on the path of the insensitivity that they've displayed thus far, let's just indicate what we mean by that. You will remember, South Africans and the world at large, that during the tough time of COVID-19, when our country and everybody else in the world was on the back foot, the minister called on this industry to at least sustain the service of essential workers, to keep the country going, to keep the health system going, to keep the economy going. We did that gladly as the taxi industry. We did that gladly. But guess what? When the time comes, when now COVID-19 and the relevant regulations have been lifted, the taxi industry is being offered compensation, because we did that on a real back foot. Because at some point, you'll remember, our members were loading very limited loads of commuters, which means we're really operating at a loss. Now, when the time comes for government to compensate our members or operators for that sacrifice, it comes up with a criteria. This vehicle I will not compensate, this member I will not compensate. We don't find that to be fair. However, let me just continue now and releasing the rest of the statement. This industry is a very vital industry. It employs about 300 drivers, 300,000 drivers. These are the figures now. We have 100,000 taxi marshals that are employed. This industry also benefits 100,000 car washers. This industry also benefits 150,000 vendors at taxi ranks. The industry generates 90 billion rand in revenue annually and spends 39 billion rand on fuel. Of course, that's the fuel, the energy fuel. This doesn't include your oil. And it spends 2 billion rand on vehicle insurance. That's how vital this industry is to the economy. We call on government to at least, at the very best or very least, rather let me say, we expect our engagement via the National Taxi Alliance to bear fruit, and for government to accordingly respond and do what we think is logically acceptable. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nkonyana. We are giving our national structure, National Taxi Alliance, and the government 21 days to respond. If that doesn't happen, we will ask our national structure that we want to have a national shutdown, whereby we'll close the whole country. No bus will move, no aeroplanes will move, no lift transport, nothing at all, so that the government can hear, because we know that our government only hears if people are on the street. Thank you very much.
There's a question.
We understand that these conversations, I see the NTA is also here, NTA spokesperson is also here. Will they also be making comments or adding to the statements that have been made right now? And are they in full support of a national shutdown? Because the last time we spoke to them, they were not supporting it based on the fact that those conversations were still ongoing. So do you have the blessing of the NTA, which is the mother body, to embark on a national shutdown?
Let me just answer that one. What happened is today the National Taxi Alliance is having its NEC meeting. So it just happened that today we've also invited you guys to be present here. So I don't know if then our national spokesperson would like to add something, but what we are saying now, that we are instructing them actually, that if nothing happens, national shutdown, it must happen. So I think then he can come and also add on what we have just